listen.
Never in my life associated the word boring with baseball.
We know what's up.
Me? Yeah. Famous? Yeah.
And I'm like giddy over there smiling like, we're about to win this shit.
Did everyone give you crap? Give me a good host story.
I'm not picking it up.
We both love the game.
We talk about it every day.
Getting on baseball.
Having some popcorn, you're fooling around your phone.
I'd have to wait in line for 3 hours.
Hang on, because it's about to be a wild ride.
All right, there is no human being on the planet I'd rather be talking to right now more than Shawn Gorman, Executive Chairman of the L.L. Shawn, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on Baseballs and Boring. How are you?
I'm doing really well, Rob. How are you?
I'm great. And so, this segment is called Baseball Fans Aren't Boring. And I am really, really excited to talk to you because for a lot of reasons. Number one, because you're just you and you're a baseball fan and the organization L.L. Bean is obviously that their roots are in baseball, which we're going to get to in a second. But it's just, baseball season's beginning. And I'm going to ask you, Shawn, this before we get into the meat and potatoes of the origins of the relationship between L.L. Bean and baseball. For you, what do you remember going to your first baseball game? Your first major league game?
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. It was probably, we went a lot with my dad. So we had a family of 6. I've got 2 brothers and a sister, and we used to pile into the old station wagon and drive down to Boston I grew up in Exeter, New Hampshire. So we were always heading down there. And the reason I remember it vividly is because when we got out of the game that night, my dad's station wagon wouldn't start. So there were 6 of us stuck in Boston and with this station wagon that didn't start with, no phones, no anything. We made it work out. I'm not sure how my dad did it, but it was a memorable time for me. Probably more memorable than the ball game.
Oh, really?
But yeah, it was a great time. And, I've just continued going down to Fenway throughout the years and, a bleacher creature for most of that time, kind of, going with my friends from college. I went to UNH, so we drive down and go to games, and we're all kind of rabid Red Sox fans and lived through the pain that every New Englander lived through for so many years. But that was great.
I mean,
I was actually at Game 2 of the World Series in '04, so that was
there you go,
spectacular. I was kind of under the deck, so I didn't actually see Bellhorn's ball leave the park, but I saw it fall, so I knew it hit the pole. It was pretty exciting, and that place just erupted. But that was crazy.
It's funny, Shawn. There's nothing like this. A couple things. Number one, we say this all the time. You have memories from that first game, right? Whether it's your car breaking down or whether it's walking into the ballpark and oh my goodness, the green has never been greener, the whites have never been whiter. I never knew this could exist.
Yeah.
And then you have a moment like the playoffs, like you said, where everyone says, baseball is sort of a methodical thing, but when you get to the playoffs, it immediately flips into there's nothing methodical about the playoffs, right? Everything is laser focused, and it's great that you're able to experience both. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was amazing. Just so many good memories.
I want to, and you're talking from Freeport, Maine right now, and I just want to share this with you before, again, there's a rich history when it comes to L.L. Bean and baseball, but I want to share this with you. So my family has a cabin in Freeport by Wolf's Neck, and in case people don't know where that is, it's about 3 miles from L.L. Bean. And so we would always go up there in the summer. Just a log cabin where typically they'd say no TV. This is when you're getting your summer reading done, and that was that. And and all we had was LLB. That's all we had. And so we would go there, open 24 or 365. So I would sit there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the baseball on the radio. And I'm not just saying this because you're here, but in my L.L. Bean sleeping bag, in this cabin. And this is where my love for baseball was almost formed, and there's nothing like baseball on the radio, right? But because I had no TV and I'm in the woods, I'm just staring at the ceiling, listening to the Red Sox on the radio. So again, whenever you talk about Freeport or LL Bean or anything like this, for me, that's where a big part of my baseball fandom was born. So yeah,
That's fantastic. I've got a similar, well, that's so cool. First of all, I didn't know you had a place on Wolf's Neck. My aunt, I guess it was probably her dad owned a place. It's on Greenwood Ave. It's just as you go through Wolf Neck State Park. There's a little road on the left, and again, another little log cabin, an outhouse, no electricity, nothing. It was just, you went down there and you got away from it all, and you're right on the water. It was spectacular. But you're a lucky man to have that
Oh,
place in your life. It's
and
beautiful.
listen, and tried to make a wiffle ball field in between the trees. It's so this is anyway. So but I want to let everybody know, because I don't want to get too deep into without letting everybody know that this conversation I was really looking forward to. I'm also looking forward to on April 3rd of going to the LL Bean store in Seaport, where we're going to celebrate the day before opening day at Fenway Park. I'm going to be there. You're going to have these awesome tarp totes. Sean, I just want to let you know there's at least like one Red Sox pitcher who they were not, the Bootmobile people were so nice. They came down to JetBlue. We did a couple podcasts in front of them, and they were so nice to give me these tarp totes, and they're tote bags made out of the tarp. And in case people don't know, and you should know, the tarp at Fenway Park is LL Bean all across it. And it's the LL Bean tarp, and the totes are made out of the tarp. So I just want to let you know that not only do I think it's cool, Lucas Giolito is walking around with this thing thinking he is showing everybody, listen, I have a tote made out of the tarp of the park, which nobody else in that clubhouse can claim, and everyone can see those on April 3rd at the Seaport. So I just want to let you
That's
know.
so cool.
Yeah.
You have, I heard we sent you some.
Yeah,
So
no,
you have that.
we
So,
got them from the Bootmobile people.
so
Yeah,
you can rock your tarp tote bag too.
already done. Already done. As we
Good
sit
deal.
here,
Good deal.
we're taping this on opening day, and I'm spreading the word in Texas. I spread the word in Fort Myers, and like I said, Lucas Giolito's walking around with it as well, spreading the word in the Red Sox clubhouse. But so it's going to be a great event. We could talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. But I want to go back to sort of you're the great grandson of LL Bean, right? Correct?
Right. That's right. Yeah.
And so it is fascinating. We talk about baseball fans aren't boring. Well, we have to go back to LL Bean, the original, not the original baseball fan, but an original baseball fan, about his history with baseball, his love for baseball. I'll let you go, and then and I know that there's a lot to sort of check off, and because it just keeps on coming. But just tell me a little bit about your family's history with baseball.
Sure. Well, I'll just start with a little bit on LL. The story of LL that people know from LL Bean and his famous Maine hunting shoe, which he kind of created in 1912, which is kind of everything took off from there. But he's got a great story. Like LL was an orphan, and he was orphaned when he was 13, and he grew up in Greenwood, Maine, and he was hunting and trapping basically for like sustenance. This is how he paid. He'd go and trap beavers and other animals to trade for furs and get money to eat and help his family out. And he had a couple of older brothers, and eventually these guys moved down to the Auburn, Maine area and Freeport, Maine area. And before LL Bean Inc., the store, there was Bean Brothers in Freeport and Auburn, Maine. And a lot of people don't know that, but it's, pre-1900s. And they were clothing guys, so they made shirts and pants and clothes. But they also had this love of baseball, and they made baseball gloves. They had Bean Brothers baseball bats. Like, we have them in our archives. It's the coolest thing. So you've got this great kind of diamond logo with Bean Brothers in it on this beautiful baseball bat. There's an old baseball glove from the early 1900s that, looks like it came from the early 1900s. But, and then there's this lore that, hey, that leather that was made to use those gloves is what LL said, hey, I think I got an idea for a shoe. Use that leather as the leather uppers of his, his main hunting shoe when he cut the rubber bottom off of another boot and stitched it together. But that's the story. So there's this long, long history of fascination with the Red Sox. And interestingly, LL was a huge baseball fan. He had, 3 seats at Fenway that he'd go down to on a regular basis. It, like, he and his wife Claire would go down there, but he always kept a 3rd seat, whether for his coats and bags and whatever he brought with him, or to bring a guest down to the game with them. And he just loved the game. And he died when I was 1, so you can imagine he died in 1967. So I never really, got to enjoy that with him. But my dad did. So my dad talks about going to the games with LL, and they'd take a train down from Boston, or, when they got older, LL would give my dad and his 2 brothers his tickets, and they'd all take the train down. And I imagine it's probably similar to my early teen and experiences at Fenway, maybe a little different. But yeah, he loved it. He developed this simplified baseball scoring book that he published, and he kept scores of every game, whether he was there in this book or whether he was back in Freeport listening to it on the radio like you were doing at.
Well, that's I knew about the scorebook, Shawn, and that's what I was thinking about. Not that, like, it is amazing. Listen, I mean, it was a little ways a while ago, but it was many, many years after LL had developed the scorebook. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm doing the same thing. Like, when I heard about that, I'm like, I'm doing the same thing. I'm doing the same thing, maybe in the same town. I don't know, but yeah. So anyway, continue.
That's so cool. No, and then I think about again, that relationship with the Red Sox that we've had. It seems so natural, kind of knowing that history of LL's. There were these great connections too. So LL in the early 30s was selling Babe Ruth his hunting gear. So there are these great stories of LL, outfitting, Babe Ruth. There's pictures of LL and Babe Ruth together, and Babe Ruth with all his cronies who went hunting with these animals that they, harvested, all wearing like tall Maine hunting shoes. It's such a cool thing. There's this great letter from, I think Babe Ruth wrote it in 1934 to LL saying, thanks for these products. They perform so well in the field. Forever your friend, Babe. And then you go beyond that. There are these wild connections, and you'd love to come up to our archive sometime and check out the stuff we have in there. But we've got a letter from Ted Williams Outdoors, and Ted Williams, in I think it was 63, wrote to LL asking if he'd be interested in partnering or selling to Ted Williams, LL Bean. And it's this great letter that you read it and you're like, this is just amazing that these connections and frankly, LL's notoriety. I mean, to me, LL was just a relative. I had no idea when I was growing up really how big a deal he was or what the company was. I grew up in New Hampshire, so my dad worked in North Andover, Mass at Western Electric. And so we weren't tied to Maine as much. And LL Bean wasn't probably as big in the 70s and well known as it is now. But yeah, it's just really cool to see a letter from Ted Williams in the 60s that he wanted to buy LL Bean.
Man, well, listen, I mean, Ted Williams' instincts were keen, number one. Like, oh my goodness. The fact that, like, he was, because even when I was growing up, as I said, going to Freeport, that would have been in the 70s when I was really very young. And it was LL Bean wasn't what it is now, certainly. I remember there was the penny candy store down the street, which is nice, but the whole town was LL Bean. Like, that was it.
Yeah.
So, but Ted Williams. So when did you first hear about this stuff? Because one of the things that comes to mind, Shawn, is street cred, right? I mean, it's great to be related to LL Bean, but then you have for your baseball, I would imagine you played Little League and things like that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Hey, I don't know if you know this, but Ted Williams, Babe Ruth, yeah, our family kind of know them a little bit.
No, you know what? I wish I had that kind of street cred when I was playing Little League. But honestly, these things they're just tucked away and we weren't talking about them. It's like this, crazy humble nature of LL Bean, I guess, where we don't really toot our horn much. And I was like, until I started working here and getting kind of into management and then hearing about this archives, the family wasn't ever going into these things. So you go into this place and you see these things that they preserved, which is so cool. But the photos, the letters, the kind of signed Babe Ruth baseball that's been sitting in there for 100 years. It's really spectacular. I just unfortunately didn't have that knowledge when I was 10 or 12. It would have helped me out. I don't think it would have helped my batting average. I might be the worst baseball player on the planet, unfortunately.
I could speak from experience. My dad kept telling me I was the third cousin of Carlton Fisk. And every time I got up to the plate, I'm like, hey, I don't know if you know you're facing the third cousin of Carlton Fisk. It does nothing. So but another part of this, another part of integrating, and by the way, people, for a lot of this, I believe a lot of this memorabilia will be at the event on April 3rd. So go check that out. I know I'm looking forward to it. But another sort of confluence with LL Bean in baseball is something that came up when we were doing a podcast the other day with Adam Ottavino, the Red Sox, in front of the bootmobile, which, by the way, people are walking it's so awesome, the bootmobile, but we're doing this podcast show in front of it, and people, I can tell you the bad jokes like, oh, you got a size 9 in that, and we're like, yeah, we get it. But it was, as I told Adam, it's the first time I've ever done a podcast in front of the bootmobile, and hopefully that not the last. It was awesome to do, but he was telling me, Adam was unsolicited, about we were talking about being a baseball player in the Northeast. Because as you and I know, it's a different world than growing up in Florida or California or anything else.
Yeah. Yeah.
And part of that is the families following you around, going to the games. In my case, I was in Essex, Massachusetts, and my parents had to sit up the hill and fend off flies and all that stuff. But Adam, who grew up in New York, it's like my dad was known as the guy who had the LL Bean blanket. I did not plant this with him. He's like, my dad was the guy watching the games always, and everyone knew him as the guy covered in the LL Bean blanket. So I mean, I think that this is one of the great things about baseball seasons, right? We get a chance to experience, like, there's gonna be a lot of LL Bean blankets out there on opening day. And then come July, we're gonna have a lot of LL Bean bucket hats, like all this stuff. But I think someone from the Northeast can appreciate that as well, right?
Oh, totally. If you're whether you're going to a game or whatever, I mean if you're a parent in the stands at any high school little league game, that's where we shine. I see more bean gear in stands than I see on the trails. So it's kind of cool, but yeah, we got you covered, and that's kind of one of our things. But yeah, growing up in the Northeast and participating in spring sports, your parents are hardy people if you can if they can do that.
It is again, thanks to I think it's the confluence of appreciation of LL Bean and our parents and our followers and our families in the baseball season. Speaking of which, so as we mentioned before, you have the tarp at Fenway Park, the LL Bean tarp, and it's
Yeah.
become an iconic thing, and not only because now we can carry it around with the tote bags, but because this is a thing. And when we see Fenway Park now, there's a generation of baseball fans who, for instance, Sean, kids make their fields in their yards. Like I used to put up on the clothes hanger, the green monster, like out of a sheet. And now kids are literally putting the LL Bean tarp over their yards. Like it's iconic. So tell me a little bit about how that came to be. And I there was a great video you guys made about the origins of it, the design of it, and everything else. But tell me a little bit about that because tarps are also a big part of the baseball season.
Yeah, it's the tarp, it really we've always dabbled, right, with the Sox and partnerships and things. And, you know, back in that time, I had just moved out of partnership marketing, frankly, but it was around our 100th anniversary, right? And we're like, oh, Fenway is 100th anniversary, like 1912, being in Fenway. And there was this notion of really beefing up the partnership. And we talked about they were down there. I was looking at LL Bean logos on the Green Monster. This was before, all the people who are there now. But the Green Monster, years ago, they were showing me that thing littered with advertising, right? It was covered with ads. And then, but from my childhood, all I knew was it was green. It was just a big green wall. And I was like, I couldn't even fathom like defacing the Green Monster with an LL Bean logo. But we went down there and they showed us that, and it looked fantastic. I mean, it's a green logo, our colors with a big white LL Bean logo on it. And then they shared the price tag, and I was like, wow, no. So we weren't in healthcare, so we couldn't afford it. So
Yeah, yeah.
but anyway, we started talking to them about different ways to do things, and the tarp idea came up, and I don't know whose idea it was, but when we thought about it, we're like, the first part was like, it's like our logo is going to be out there during a rain delay. Fans are going to be mad because it's raining and the game's delayed, and they're going to roll our tarp out and they're going to see our logo, and and we're like, yeah, let's get over it, because there's this other element of what we do is we protect people from the elements. Like it's our gear, like LL Bean clothing and gear. It's like we've got you covered. And then that notion of, the logo on the tarp, keeping your socks dry since 1912 is just a great play on words and a great play on the partnership. And it looks beautiful. Like when you go out there and they roll that out, it's spectacular. And I have so many friends who send me, messages from the game they're at. They're like, oh, check this out. I see your tarp out on, it's rain delay here. Tarp looks awesome. And I bet I have 100 messages from people who have sent that. And then there were like countless like Instagram posts and social posts that where people are kind of putting this out there. And it's a great partnership, works really, really well. And then, so as we had that rolling, again, as part of the 100th, we were thinking, what could we do? And then somebody came up with this idea to repurpose the tarps and say, they change out like every 2 years. So, you gotta change them out. But it's like, we're like, and again, it's probably like a little bit of a sustainability play, but we're like, we don't really want to trash these things and put them in a landfill. So what can we do? So we brought them up to Brunswick Naval Air Station. They had these huge hangars, and we took these things in there and laid them out and hosed them off and scrubbed them up. And then we took them over and took the fabric and cut it and took it to our manufacturing facility in Brunswick, Maine. And we made these awesome totes out of it. And they sold out. Like when we advertised them, I think it was like 2 hours. The things were gone. Wow. Like we were promoting it, and they're limited production. I mean, there are only a couple of tarps, so you can't, but it's a piece of history. And we're like, okay, that was really cool. So we just kind of thought every couple of years we should do something like this. And we're really excited again to do it. We've done it with every kind of championship year. So it's been really cool, and that's worked really well. Fortunately for us, post 2004, we've had quite a few of those, which is really nice. But it's awesome. So it's been a great partnership, great concept. And I got to tell you, the Fenway Sports Group is awesome to work with. Like Drew Parkinson and his crew there are just fantastic people, and they're just great partners. They're just regular people, like the people at Bain. It's been good.
It really is. And first of all, the bags are there's a lot of things cool about it, but people don't understand people, it's like the first time you step on Fenway Park Field. I remember that. It was sort of this jolt went up through me because that was what I was watching all those years. It was almost like a place that didn't exist, and now I'm stepping on it. And I think with the tarps, that's sort of the vibe you get. People don't understand what that is, right?
Right, right.
And then the other part, Shawn, is there's not a lot of things, and it would have been the wall would have been fine, fine.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
but still, what you guys did has become, I'll say it again, an iconic part of Fenway Park. Like that's not hyperbole. That is a fact.
yeah,
And that is just so cool. It's so cool. So
yeah. No, it's really cool. It's funny you mentioned that getting onto the field for the first time. I think the coolest part of the partnership was when I got to walk onto the field and took a tour with the team, and then we, went into the Green Monster, right where the scorekeepers is, and it's like this little narrow area, and they gave us all Sharpies so we could sign our name on, inside the Green Monster somewhere, and it's just like spectacular. It's such an iconic park, and it's just to be on the field and to look around and see the stadium surrounding you. It's amazing. It's super cool.
yeah, and it's not a bad place, believe me. Like as we get into the season here, I'm reminded it's not a bad place for my office to be. So I appreciate that. Um, the last thing, Shawn, and I really appreciate your time. I asked this of the commissioner of baseball, managers, general managers, players. There's no wrong answer. Why isn't baseball boring?
Wow. I
No
mean,
wrong answer. There is
yeah, no
none.
wrong answer.
Yeah.
I think a couple of reasons, a lot of reasons, right? So, I mean, for me, this was like childhood, whether you're having some epic wiffle ball game while you're listening to the Sox on some, a transistor radio, or that first experience to the park. But baseball is more than a game, right? Baseball, to me anyway, is this great experience. And when you can experience baseball in a park like Fenway, it's the farthest thing from boring. I mean, you see everything at baseball games, so it's much more than a ball game, and then the rivalries that exist. And I don't know about every team that has this, but growing up as a Red Sox fan and really kind of despising the Yankees, there's no holding back. It's despising it. Like that was just the fire and the energy and the enthusiasm for the Sox every year. It was so much fun. It was just like to have a foe, right? And just having this thing and watching your team, which was, I think, always the second team, best team in baseball, having to go up against the Yankees every year. Oh, we got a wild card spot. Oh, we got to play the Yankees. It was so problematic. And then like ultimately living through the 2000s and going, wow, what a transition here. Farthest thing from boring in the world, but love the sport, love the drama, love the strategy. I wasn't a huge baseball player myself, but many family members were, and the things and the knowledge you have to have as a baseball player of where every play is going to go, where every play's at. I'm a big basketball player. It's way deeper than basketball, but farthest thing from boring. So I love it. Love the energy. Love the experience. The total experience of being a baseball.
And I'm a high school basketball coach, and I appreciate basketball. I like going to basketball games, but I've said this a million times, and I've had asked this. I said baseball is the best sporting event to go to. It just is. When you sit there with a basketball, hockey, football, you're like boom, boom, boom. Baseball's just different. It's just different. You can talk about something, then something happens, and then you talk about it, or you talk about your day, and then something happens, and then you get really into it. All of that. So, and we're going to celebrate baseball on April 3rd at the L.L. Bean store in Seaport in Boston. And we're going to have, like we said, there's going to be a lot of great stuff going on, including this podcast. But Shawn, man, it was so good to talk to you. It's so good. And thank you for all that you do. And I mean that, like, I thank you for what all that you and L.L. Bean does, because as I hope that we articulated on this podcast, this is sort of an example of the heart and soul of the game. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks so much, Rob. I unfortunately I've got to travel next week and I can't get down to Boston, but I'd love to stop by sometime just to say hi, shake your hand, and thanks. This has been great. I really appreciate you asking us to be on.
Listen, open invitation to the broadcast booth. Let's go. So
Good deal.
yeah.
All right.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks so much.